Hello everybody and welcome back to another video today. What do you know? Was not expecting this to be the video today, but here we are talking about the Los Angeles Valiant. They finally have revealed their new roster. This will be a very, very different video from most of my other roster videos, so be prepared. Because I'm gonna go in a bit in this one. I've been pretty reserved so far in talking about the LA Valiant and the situation surrounding the LA Valiant. I've tended to kind of be a little more calm about it. I've tended not to really go deep into it because I felt like it was just better to kind of leave it be until I got to this video. But we need to talk about everything that happened with the LA Valiant and the problems that this roster have and the way that this team handled the creation of this roster and everything surrounding it. I want to open up though by saying this, and it's a very important thing to say. Much like what we saw with the Vancouver Titans last season, where they blew up that roster, mistreatment by the organization that then results in some players coming into a pretty less than ideal situation, being put into a spot where they were never going to find a lot of success. They found more success than a lot of people probably thought they would. And you have a team in that Titans roster where, hey, these players, you might want, you wish these players the best, even though the organization itself is pretty bad. This is the same situation here with the LA Valiant. I will criticize these players. And I will criticize some of the positions and stuff. I wish these players the best, though, right? You analyze something, you have to be realistic, you have to be honest, and you have to look at these players, and you have to kind of call out the shortcomings, the weaknesses you see for that. But at the end of the day, these are all players who have fought their way onto this roster, for better or for worse. Whether it was because they were super talented, whether it was because they had connections from just having that past of playing together and playing with some of this staff. There's all sorts of reasons why some of these players might be on this team. But the reality is they're here. They've been given this shot. They saw an opportunity. They took that opportunity, and they're running with that opportunity. That is something I respect. And I think that these players all deserve to be looked at as some of the best players in the world at this game of Overwatch for even being trialed to get onto these teams, right? And then making these teams, even if it's not ideal, that says a lot about who they are as players, and I hope that these players all perform at a very high level, and I hope that this is not the end of their careers, is their time with the LA Valiant. With that, I have a lot of problems with this roster, and so I'm going to spend a lot of time talking about a number of things, and I'll save some of that for the end, but let's start with kind of the normal, typical format of the way I break down this video. Let's talk about the tank line for this team. To start off, we have at main tank, one of two main tanks, we have Silver 3. Now, I actually don't hate the signing of Silver 3. I don't know a lot about him as a main tank player. I don't know a lot about his history, but he has the Reinhardt and the Winston and the Orisa. He can play them at a pretty high level. He's found some mild success. He hasn't been super successful. He's been playing for the One Winner organization for a long time. The most recent kind of major results in contenders in 2020 Season 2 for China, they finished top 6, so not incredible. They finished top 3 in contenders 2020 China Season 2 Week 4, third in Week 3 for 2020, so they had some success. They were second in Week 2 of 2020, second in Week 1 of 2020 Season 2. So they found some success in contenders. Never a championship or anything like that, but decent success for the team as a whole. Silver 3 comes in, I think the most likely main tank player for this team. Has the heroes that you kind of want. His main tank partner is a player by the name of NVM, or formerly a Dodo and a bunch of other names. Once again, another player who is known for playing the Winston, the Reinhardt, and the Orisa. But the kick here with NVM is NVM retired from Overwatch in 2018. Now, from an outsider perspective, I do not know how much NVM still plays Overwatch. He might still play it on a regular basis. Yeah, he may not be playing it at the highest level where he's playing with pros, but you don't have to play it necessarily at the highest level to provide value. He might be here as kind of a leadership figure. He spent a long time with LGE, which is the organization that is managing this team, so it's not that surprising to see an LGE player kind of show up on this team. It's an interesting signing because he hasn't played in so long. They have another main tank, so it's not the worst signing in the world. Like, I think it would have been better if they had another player. I think that having 3 tank players and only having 7 players put you in a pretty bad position. I think he was not the smartest signing from a kind of roster perspective, but he certainly brings something to the table. And who knows, maybe he will, by the time all is said and done, be the better player than Silver 3, and maybe he will be able to actually perform pretty well for this team. The first place I really have an issue with this roster is their off-tank, which is Shou Chung, or Shou Chang, but I believe it is Shou Chung. Shou Chung is not an off-tank player by position and by role, really. He's a DPS player. His main heroes are the Genji and the Sigma, or the Genji and the Doomfist and the Echo. He's a flex DPS player. And in fact, he used to play tank back in 2017, but he played main tank back in 2017. And yes, he has played some Sigma and some Zarya, but to my knowledge, he does not have a very good diva, and his most recent time in contenders, his role was predominantly DPS, playing for Flag Gaming. So it's something. I don't have a ton of faith in his off-tank play. Like I said, I don't know if he can even play diva. We have seen that there are some players who are really good at the Sigma, such as Marvel, who last season was one of the best Sigmas in the league, but when he had to flex over the Diva or the Zarya, he didn't look very comfortable, but when he was able to just play the Sigma, he looked pretty good. Could be a similar situation with Shou Chung here, but it is a very interesting position to be in because that's not his role. That's not his native role. That's not his comfort role, and I just think it's very weird. When you know there are other players that are off-tanks that you could have signed to play off-tank, like, I don't know, Hybe, who this team has signed as a main support. Now, I have not watched Hybe play main support. Maybe he can play main support, but he's coming from, once again, the one winner, and on the one winner, his role was not to play as a support. When he was on the one winner, he played off tank. That is his role. He was the off tank partner for Silver 3. So why are you taking this guy who is a former off tank, which is arguably your weakest role, and moving him over to main support when you could have just signed a main support that was already there? It doesn't make a lot of sense why you have an off-tank player as your main support. And what makes it even worse and even stranger and weirder is this report coming out from Halo of Thoughts. Halo of Thoughts has talked about the fact that this team was going to sign a player by the name of Thor in Chinese contenders. And this is not just like any old player. Thor is a Chinese player who actually has been not too bad in that main support role. But for whatever reason, they didn't sign him. Or at least seemingly it was for whatever reason. But the report coming out from Halo of Thoughts tells a very interesting story. Halo Thoughts said that, according to multiple sources, the reason Thor's deal fell through with the Valiant is because the Valiant are supposedly not signing players with a buyout fee. Thor had been at the team facility, had his Overwatch League picture taken, but had signed with an academy team last week. Once that signing had happened and a fee was required, the Valiant supposedly decided to not pursue Thor and replaced him. I understand that LGE wanted Thor on the roster, but Valiant supposedly declined. So, technically, the team that is operating the LA Valiant is LGE. But clearly, the LA Valiant as an organization don't want to spend any money on this team. They want this team to have $0 going towards their team, and so when they could have signed an actual main support player who is known for actually playing main support heroes, the Mercy, the Lucio, they said, we don't want to pay the money to buy out his contract, so you can't bring him in. When the team, the group that is organizing and putting this team together, LGE, wanted to sign a player, the LA Valiant said, no, we don't want to spend the money. So instead, you have an off-tank player now coming in to play the role of main support. And the probable reason why is that they actually probably wanted to have Shou Chung as a flex DPS player, but they couldn't have him as a flex DPS player because they needed a main support, and he wasn't very good at main support, so the next best thing they had was probably Hy-Vee. So they have Hy-Vee on his off roll, Shou Chung on an off roll, no flex DPS player, no main support player. This team doesn't make any sense because the LA Valiant don't want to spend any money on this team when this team had a solution. They had a full roster that probably could have made sense, and all of a sudden now this team makes absolutely zero sense whatsoever because the LA Valiant are too cheap and they don't want to do anything with this team because they don't care anymore. They do not care about the league. They don't care about anything with this team. They are done. Immortals Gaming Club is so fed up with this league that instead of just selling the team slot, and probably because they wouldn't be able to make the money back that they would have bought the team slot for, they're just shortchanging LGE by giving them no money, telling them they can't sign the players that they want, and they're just using the bare minimum. Now, maybe things will change. Maybe they'll sign more players over time. Maybe the Valiant will let them sign a couple more players. Maybe they will pay the buyout for Thor, and maybe this all will go away. Maybe. But I don't have a lot of faith considering the way this organization has been acting recently. To round off the support line, though, is a player that I actually am very interested in seeing, and that is Wea. Interestingly enough, he was once an off-tank player. So, someone who has played the D.Va and the Zarya in the past. But he's also primarily a flex support player. And he played this past season with the Guangzhou Charge. I don't think he saw any playtime whatsoever for the team, but he was with the team, and I thought he was actually someone who had a lot of promise, that even though we never really got to see him in action. So I think it is interesting to see that Wea is managing to get his second shot pretty quickly, and he's in the Overwatch League again, and I think that he's a player who definitely has a lot to prove. He is one of the players I think is definitely the highlights of this Valiant roster, and I think he is one of the players who I am really most looking forward to their success going forward, because I do think that it is an interesting player who could actually bring a lot of potential kind of star power to this team based on what we've seen from him in the past. Now, moving on to the DPS, I know I said they don't have a flex DPS player on this team. I misspoke. They don't have a hit scan DPS player on this team. They have two flex DPS players, and there's a little bit of crossover here where they have some hit scan potential, but it's not a ton. So even if Shou Chung was a DPS player, they'd still be kind of struggling a little bit. But let's go to off tank, where oh boy, DPS. I don't know why I can't speak today. DPS is funky. This is a funky story we got here. So let's start with the first of the DPS players. It's our good friend Crystal, formerly of the Guangzhou Charge, but of course most notoriously known for his time with the Hangzhou Spark in 2019 and the beginning of 2020. If you don't know about Crystal and his story, you just look it up. You'll figure it out. The TLDR is he went back to China during the season and never returned, and there was a whole court battle because of things that he did, and it's a whole thing. It's a lot to unpack and to follow. So if you have any interest in following the story of Crystal, you can look that up. But Crystal's on this team. When he did play in the Overwatch League in 2019, he actually was pretty good. He actually had some pretty good moments. And I remember he played Bastion one time on Oasis, and it was pretty good. It worked really well. That was when the Hungerspark were a very good team. He's primarily a flex DPS player, primarily the Genji, the Hanzo, but he does also have McCree and Widowmaker in his kit, so he will probably be the predominant hit scan player for this team. How will he stack up to the likes of Carpe and Guangbung and DM and Lip, Fleta even? Who knows? But that is probably more likely the role he's going to fill in. In a lot of ways, I think in the way that we saw KSF do that for the LA Valiant back in 2019. I kind of forgot that this is the same team. But, KSF had that role in 2019. They didn't really have a strong flex DPS or hit scan DPS player. So KSF could play it. Wasn't his comfort role, but he could play it, and he could play it at a high enough level that it was serviceable, if not the best. And I think that's kind of where Crystal is. He can play it. It's serviceable, but it's not going to be elite for the most part. Though things could have changed over time. He definitely has improved at that hit scan role, but his comfort has always been flex DPS. The main flex DPS player for this team is going to be Mo Lanrin. He's got your Pharah, he's got your Sombra. He's also another player who plays D.Va. Ironically enough, their off-tank player doesn't play D.Va, but every other player on this roster seemingly knows how to play D.Va. He also knows how to play Brigitte, which, ironically enough, a bunch of the players on this roster can play Brigitte, but Hybe is not one of them. So, anyway, Mo Lanrin, another player coming from the One Winner. A lot of the players coming from this same The One Winner roster, so it is something that is of note where a lot of the players are coming from the same teams. They've played with each other in the past, even if they're not in the same comfort roles. You have Mo Lanrin, you have Hybe, you have Silver 3, all of whom played together on the same team. And even in the past, you look kind of like when some of these players joined. Silver 3, Hybe, and Mo Lanrin were on this team in 2018. Well, they joined at the same time as Wea and Crystal. So, Crystal, Wea, Mo Lanrin, Hybe, Silver 3 have all played together in the past. They're all in different roles now, in some cases, right? Like, Hybe's not in his main role, Silver 3's not in his main role, but Wea is, Crystal is, you still have Silver 3 and Mo Lanrin in the main role, so there is some pre-existing synergy with this team, which is a huge benefit for this team. You at least have some level of synergy, and the coaching staff for this team, JP Cat and Hiko, two coaches who also spent time with the One Winner. JP Cat was with the One Winner. Hiko, actually, I take that back. Hiko was with Flag Gaming. He was not with the One Winner. But a lot of the players on this team either come from Flag Gaming or the One Winner. So it makes sense that a lot of the players kind of play together, play from the same kind of background. They've played with these coaches before. So it is very much a here are the coaches we want to hire. Those coaches are going to bring in some of the players that they've played with in the past. Some of these players played for LGE in the way past. Primarily, NVM played for LGE in the past, and so then more recently these players play for either Flag Gaming or the One Winner. Thor, of course, played for Flag Gaming, so if they were to bring him in, they would have that strong main support player, or at least a main support player who is used to that role. But the main problem, right, that we all can see this problem, and we all know this problem, right? You just look at this roster, right? This is not a bash on the players, right? If you expect players like Hybe and Shochung, who are being forced off of their comfort roles to find a lot of success when they're up against the likes of, like Hybe has to compete in that main support role with the likes of Animo and Lee Jae Gon and Funny Astro. some really good main supports in the APAC region. And Shou Chung has to compete with the likes of Void and Tuyu and Poco and Bianca and Krong. I mean, these are some really, really talented players. And Shou Chung it is not his comfort role. High B, this is not his comfort role. They don't have DPS depth, which is something I talk about over and over and over again. You are almost guaranteed not to be able to find success if you cannot run flexible DPS players. Yeah, if you really need to run Shou Chung on DPS, and you can, but then who's your off tank? And the fact that the LA Valiant didn't give this team the money, isn't willing to pay for a player who actually plays the role that they they need, is just, why did you even bother to keep the team in the first place? Just sell the roster. You've already probably destroyed the careers of Dreamer and Rain and Adam. Those are 3 players who probably are not going to find a spot in the Overwatch League ever again. Possibly even McGravy, too. But Agilities might never find a spot in the Overwatch League again. He's popular. He can be with the Toronto Defiant as a streamer. He's a big community, but he probably won't find a spot again. You have people like Sungwoo and Unter and Lucianal, the translator, who all had jobs and positions within this team and who are now out of a job because you decided to ruin these people's chances at a future, and you've decided to kill some of these careers when they were doing fantastic. They thought they had everything figured out, and you just killed their career. You just pulled the rug out from under them, and you signed 7 new Chinese players. And the worst part about it is, you're probably going to kill a lot of their careers too. Some of them may find success, right? Crystal, a very questionable player with his past. You might have a pretty bad opinion of him in general, and so chances are you probably don't expect a lot out of Crystal in terms of him kind of being popular, but who knows? I don't think he's super popular in China, but I could be wrong. But someone like Silver 3 might find some success, and Weia might find some success, but like Shou Chung and High B, the chances of them finding success are so small if you don't make any changes to this roster, because they're not on their comfort role, right? If they were able to play where they're supposed to play, yeah, maybe they would find more success. But you can't expect a team that wasn't given the resources and wasn't even allowed to sign players they wanted to sign to find success, right? This team, it has been stated in the past that the LA Valiant don't care. They're not trying. They don't even expect to win games. They're just trying to get through the season, make it out of the season, done, be over with it, move on. This is an embarrassment. The LA Valiant as an organization should be ashamed of themselves. Like, you don't represent the city of Los Angeles anymore, not because you signed a roster of Chinese players. That doesn't really matter. Like, in my opinion, like the NYXL is a Korean team, right? That they still represent New York. The reason why you don't represent the LA anymore is because you didn't make a move to bring in Chinese players, really. You just kind of did it. You just cut everybody. You killed these players' careers. Fan favorite, beloved players. Some really popular players. And some of them found new homes. Lastro, KSF, Kai, Shax. Some really talented players are able to find new homes. Some of them are back in contenders where they may never get out again, because you gave them an opportunity, like Adam, and you just pulled it out from under the rug. And I know there was that story from Liz Richardson and Jacob Wolf. I'll actually link to it in the description if you haven't read it. But there was a story that came out where they talked about how the LA Valiant were kind of forced to move to Asia in a way. Not really forced, but encouraged by the Overwatch League itself, because they wanted there to be an even number of teams between the two leagues. You know, they don't want to do 7 and 13 anymore. They wanted kind of 8 and 12 or 10 and 10. And so they kind of encouraged teams to move. But the move that was encouraged was not necessarily sell your roster and buy a Chinese team where you're not giving these players any money and you're cutting them in this really late period in time. Like, the Overwatch League is not innocent in all of this, and I'm going to talk a lot more about some stuff with the Overwatch League in a video next week, but This is such an embarrassment of a team and an organization to do this to their players, the ones that they cut and the ones that they signed. You cut these players that you had previously, and you're hanging them out to dry. You're not giving them any resources to succeed, so you're screwing them over. And then you're also screwing over the players you are signing because you're not actually willing to give them the money and resources to find success, and you're not even letting this organization, LGE, that's running your team, have any real control because you're not willing to give them the money to sign the players they want. And apparently, you're not even offering them the ability to buy out the LA Valiant when the season's over. It seems really likely that what they're doing is sending the team over to China, having them play there for a season, then probably just getting rid of that roster, moving back to North America, bringing another roster in, and starting over from the beginning. I despise what this team has done. I despise what this organization has done. I wish these players and coaches the best of luck, but I cannot support this organization doing the things that they have done, and I cannot support an organization that is actively hurting the careers of pretty much every player that has ever walked through those doors over the past 2 years, because they seemingly don't have any desire to take care of this team anymore, because really all they care about now is their Valorant team. And hey, their Valorant team's pretty good, but you shouldn't be neglecting then the players that you already have signed to contracts in another place. Give them actual treatment that is positive, and don't just throw them out to the wolves like they have done. Those are my thoughts on this LA Valiant roster. Not surprised this video ended up being as long as it is, but that's all that I have to say. Let me know your thoughts on this team in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want more like it in the future, consider liking and subscribing. But that's all from me. Hope you're all staying safe and staying healthy. And until next time, bye-bye.